Welcome once again to Bleeding Edge Interviews, where we dig a little bit deeper into the minds of the top artists in the world of progressive rock, aka the progosphere. I'm your host, Super Dave. Thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. I really do. So, in recent months, I've been talking to folks from Australia, the UK, Germany, Finland, even the far-flung land of Boston. So this time around, I'm going to be talking with someone from a country that you really don't hear very often about when talking about progressive metal or progressive rock, Lebanon. That's right. So this time around, I'm talking with Yassin of Rising Star's Turbulence, whose third album, Binary Dream, is making some big waves and getting a lot of positive notice, both from fans and from critics. He's a virtuoso keyboardist in a band that loves big concepts paired with even bigger music. And that's exactly what Binary Dream is just chock full of. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Yassin of Turbulence. All right, so exciting things going on with Turbulence these days, and
apparently,
and I'm curious because it's not like you guys are what I would call a newer band. You've been doing this for 11 years, but it certainly feels like there's this momentum that's really picking up over here in the U.S. at this point in time with Binary Dream. And I'm curious. I imagine you guys got to be feeling pretty excited about this momentum you're feeling.
Yeah, definitely. We never expected that this gonna go international at first. Like, we thought we were a small band in our country and never gonna make it, whatever. This kind of demotivation that every band gets when it starts. And after a while, you figure out that, like, you're actually making progress. You're making music. You're making more production and the bigger production. And it's getting to a lot of people. And luckily, by signing with Frontiers Records, made a lot of impact on, like, all the world to reach kind of the music and be, like, affordable and discoverable kind of for them to check and listen to.
Yeah. It seems the right record label can do a lot for you if you can get on there when you're looking to build an audience.
Definitely, it's also about the deal, distribution, and how you're gonna work on. What are the things you're gonna work on your own? What are the things that you're gonna work on your own? Definitely.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, certainly what helped really bring you guys to my attention as well too is the plethora of positive reviews that are coming out for the album. It's really generating a lot of buzz, and certainly then that prompts one to go back and listen to the back catalog, and you hear and you go, wow, these guys are really, really good. And so it's I imagine it's really, really gratifying, not just to see sales tick up, but also to know that the quote unquote critical audience is enjoying it. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay, no problem. Especially these days, you have this kind of accessibility for artists, so you can check all your stats and analytics, because you can see your progress, who's listening, which countries are listening, and on all platforms. And this is like people never had this before. Like, if you look at our people we look up to, the musicians that we listen to, and watch them playing on those stages for a long time, since the 90s, and don't see that these people had access to that kind of analytics or stats before they would know how many people attended the concert or how many people listened to this particular song that was released yesterday. So it's more like everything is becoming digital, and you feel that you have access to know who's liking you and who's not, and where you want to focus more on the next step, and which country you want to satisfy kind of the most.
Yeah, that's a fascinating angle on it that I'm surprised I've not heard come up before. And just because I'm used to, with the podcasting and things like that, checking analytics from time to time, see how things are doing. Sure. And, it can, you can get a little obsessive about it if you're not careful. I never thought about musicians doing it as well, but I guess you're right. That makes a lot of sense. I imagine too, it's when it starts to really get busy. Yeah, we can get a little obsessive about it too.
Not a lot of musicians. obsessed musicians would do it. Not every musician.
Yeah, right. So you talk about the bands that influenced you and you grew up. I know certainly, like in reading a lot of the reviews and things, like the inevitable comparisons come there whenever one is a metal band with progressive tendencies, and you hear Dream Theater and Haken mentioned, and when those are comparisons in a positive way, certainly I imagine that's exceedingly gratifying because those are two of the biggest ones. But I'm curious, are they part of your influences and your background? Are they the inspirations behind
That question all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. I can't agree less with this because we have a lot of side turbulence. We actually divided our writing process into the main influence, which is prog metal,
Yeah.
and other influences which are oriental, coming from our country, and jazz influences that we develop as musicians.
Yeah.
So we are combining kind of all of that together. But that doesn't mean that other bands didn't do it before,
Right.
which also means that we are influenced by these bands. That's why when you find yourself combining a lot of genres, you look outside, you see like other people doing that too, which is a nice thing. And we also had this thing to be influenced by other bands, and which means at this point, Dream Theater and Aiken, and by the way, Tesseract is a good influence on us. So I do agree, and I do confirm that these influences were part of mainly Frontal and Binary Dream.
Right. Talk a little bit about what your other influences are. What are the things that you find that people might be surprised to hear have had some sort of influence on what you're writing now?
Influences on what I'm writing now. Right now is no writing that particularly, but Binary Dream was mainly the kind of the start of new fast process in writing music, because Frontal took 4 years and Binary Dream was written in 1 year kind of, and then recorded for 1 year, almost like that.
Yeah.
And like literally from my side, like as a co-founder, songwriter, and the keyboard player, which have the keyboard influence and synthesizer influence on the tracks, I would say that this process is faster to work with because it includes less thinking for the progressive world, and a more kind of mainstream, or let's say popular kind of melodies that come up in the album.
Yeah.
Other than Frontal, which took like 4 years, and that has a lot of thinking and mathematics, and to you're into it. But at the same time, when you think about the production and the arrangement, the layers of Frontal, it's more wider than Binary Dream. That's why it took that much. And for me, the less is the process, the more joy we are actually finding. And the hustle, we have a pressure of certain record label that makes you want to fasten the process, or fasten it for the good. So you release the album finally, because it's not going to take like 5 years to be released. That plays a big role too. You have a deadline, you have a timeline you have to work on, and you have to.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah. It sounds like you guys have systematized things at least a little bit, streamlined a little bit.
Turbulence is like that since 2013. Yeah. Welcome to Turbulence.
Yeah. Now I'm curious too, because you guys are from Lebanon, so a bit of a different world in this sense from where I'm at. And even here, progressive rock and metal are still comparatively a bit of niche in the U.S. It's not really that mainstream of music. I'm curious what it's like in Lebanon. Is it a big genre to to be in, or is it something where you guys are kind of out on a limb, so to speak? You're kind of mining territory that's not, hugely popular in your homeland.
Okay, let's say first, before getting to progressive metal, let's say metal is not actually a popular genre in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And our culture comes from the Arabic Oriental music that we focused on since years. And after the independence of Lebanon, there's a lot of artists coming up in the Arabic music, and that's the main scene kind of in Lebanon. But going back into the rock and metal side, where a lot of bands in Lebanon try to make albums, try to have releases, work on their music, a lot of them kind of fail, or let's say not fail, shifted into another kind of genre to it's easy to go with pop because it's gonna give you a career faster, definitely. And you can't like exaggerate the metal scene in Lebanon to that point, because it's very small and the bands are counted by fingers. And you can also look at the side that the Middle East in general has no metal bands, kind of all around, with less audience, less interest. So we, as Turbulence, tried our best to commit to the genre because we love the music. Yeah. We want to proceed with it. On top of that, progressive metal is not actually a known genre all over the world. Like, it's not, let's say, focused on or popular enough to be listened to, right? So in Lebanon, it's even like less than that. It's like -5 interest. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So that's interesting then that you guys, I guess at some point in time, found that type of music and were drawn to it. How did that come about? How did you discover it?
Okay, so starts off with me and Alan actually when we met.
Yeah.
Before even we met actually, and I had a lot of influence for Dream Theater. I love listening to them. I love playing their music,
right.
And I had a lot of other interests which are pop and rock and jazz music stuff that I was practicing kind of because practicing days when you were young, and I had the chance to meet Alan by sending each other some demos, and we decided to make this band happen. It started with literally covering all the songs for this theater, almost like all the albums, and we did like 4 cover shows that all in Lebanon to like promote the band kind of. And say, hey, we know how to play Dream Theater, so come watch us. So yeah. After that, kind of it evolved to become an original band and make music when we started with this Equilibrium.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to hear those origins, but it's very interesting for me to hear when we're talking about different cultures and the experiences are different. And, it's like, it sounds to me like it as much as it is a niche here for a lot of the bands that I listen to, and I might talk about the people that aren't fascinated with it. And then they just look at me like, who are you talking about? What's happening? And to think that there's, other places too, where even more so, and I can only imagine, in many cases where, you start to talk about putting a band together and finding people then who also have some interest in playing that kind of music can be challenging, I think.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, because back then, we had Facebook to communicate, kind of see like who's interested in progressive metal, who's liking Dream Theater in this country. And sorry, trying to figure out who to contact or who to make a band with is a very hard part for me. So You can't find musicians that are completely interested in genre and want to go to the end with you, to the extreme, to whatever happens to make this band happening. And it's something that you already struggle with in metal music in all the world. Yeah. It's not like, it's not like something easy, but in Lebanon, it was even more harder, more like time consuming, energy consuming, and getting demotivated was always on the line. So, yeah, I understand. I also look at other bands in US, and one of them is, of course, Dream Theater and Symphony X, how they formed themselves and how they got to get together. And it was very smooth. Like, it wasn't even hard, like, okay, there's all effort to put to like make compromises, make more commitments to the band and so, but the process itself, the story itself, it's not that hard to understand, consume. So,
yeah. At this point, I guess that one of the benefits of social media, because I think it does help people find ways to connect more easily than they would have been back then. I can only imagine.
I think now it's the only way.
Yeah.
Let's hope AI won't eat us all.
Speaking of that, so let's talk about the album a little bit here. So,
yeah,
big sprawling concept album, the way they used to do them, so to speak. And it's, I guess, the story of this, I guess we'll say character, because I know it starts out as AI. And I don't know how to say it when I read it. I see 8B plus 1, but I don't know if it's supposed to be 8B1 or if I'm supposed to say the plus or not. Okay. But basically this AI shifting from inanimate basically to sentience. Wow. What brought that concept to mind for you?
Okay, so that's first clear for all the people that 8B plus 1 is actually 8 billion, which is the population almost of Earth, plus 1, which is the robot we're talking about. That's kind of making this robot have conscious and being a human. So that's why there's 8B plus 1. That's why we call it that.
Nice.
The idea of the album came out when me and Anthony, the bassist, were actually sitting together. We would had this roommate time, and we had this brainstorming our concept for the album. See, in Turbulence, there is the concept first, and there was the music. Without the concept, we are not doing the music. And this is something that a lot of people kind of tell me it's very contradicting. You can't like make music like that. And I disagree with some of them. I agree with some of them because, yeah, okay, you can't just look at a picture and you write music, like it's not. You have to see the concept. You have to live it. You have to find the storyline. You have to kind of act it as an individual with your group, with your band in this case. So, Binary Dream was born from an idea of creating and making conscious into a robot. This robot will pass through a recipe, kind of, let's say, to a process that will lead to get the conscious alive in his head and start kind of formulating formatting the process created in his head to show it to the world. And showing it to the world is actually the other half of the album, which you can experience this mind or this AI conscious or whatever you want to call it these days, how it's behaving in society or in the world. This idea is pretty used in a lot of concepts and albums and movies and series, and every AI is booming and people talking about robots all the time. But what we like to focus on in this album is not actually the robot itself. That okay, robot, turbulence, we wanted to focus on the consciousness, and which is making consciousness alive inside the head of a machine. It could be a robot, could be anything you want to call. But the only marketing way that works these days to present a machine is a robot. So that's why there's a robot.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating idea, and it makes me wonder: are you guys have you typically throughout your lives been interested in and enthusiasts in science fiction and things like that? Is this grown out of fondness for Philip K. Dick novels, maybe, or
No, not really, but I know that's a good reference. Our interest in math, physics, and science, chemistry, whatever you want to call it, the big sciences is there. Me and Alan started the band with band name with that interest, which is Turbulence. It's it's physical state also, and the kind of technology interest is more in this album, by the way, more than like being scientific but more like focusing on the technology part. Like, how far are we going? We are actually putting a human consciousness inside a machine and making it react and act into society, and finally trying to figure out how a human, in the last part of the album, how humans are actually very crucial and very bad to each other, doing destruction, doing hatred, building some awful stuff that this machine, particular machine that has consciousness, refused to see, refused to like go on with.
Yeah.
So it shut down, and that was the end of Corrosion.
Fascinating. So it's interesting. I think because a lot of these things, skim across maybe the surface of our consciousness. We think about AI for a few moments and think, oh, blah, 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 that's scary, or that's fascinating, or it's both. But a lot of us don't spend a lot of time maybe really thinking about it and musing over it and maybe trying to write a story that's got a philosophical angle to it. So I got to wonder, by the time you were done writing this and really thinking this through, what, in a certain sense, what did you discover about yourself, and what, I guess, little epiphanies, what realizations did you have, and when you really carried it through to the conclusion? Because it sounds like you came up with something interesting, definitely, but I'm curious what else you might have discovered about yourself and about society, so to speak, while you were doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, for me, the song Hybrid is kind of a real explanation to what is happening to me in real life, like this year, for example, and which is getting consumed by the social media reality versus the real reality, which is very confusing, very heartbreaking, kind of, because you can even see how machines and AI, and right now the algorithm that we see it in all the social media parts, is controlling what you want to see. It's showing you what you actually want to be interested in, at the same time not being interested in, and it's confusing you, making you look at this and telling you that this is what you have to be, this is what you have to become, while you actually look back like, I have a long way to become like that. So I start thinking like, how I'm going to change, how I'm going to adapt, how I'm going to, start really thinking about myself because of that little detail, little algorithm, little data that we actually created. We humans, we created this. So, this psychology thing is what I call to myself hybrid. You're becoming a person who want to be a real human and a machine at the same time, because you are actually learning from the machine, the actual machine that you created. And
that's become a feedback. Yeah, just feeding back one into the other. That's interesting. It's I hadn't fully picked up on the end of the story, I think, and that's partly because I'm not a teenager anymore and I can't sit in my room and pour over lyric sheets like I once did. So I end up, picking up as I pick up. But in that idea that it's fascinating in some ways, I think that you're not the first writer to come to the conclusion that at times when we start to look too hard at society, maybe we don't want to go on. The story of 2112 by Rush. And it's kind of the protagonist of the story ends his life, or I don't know if it was intentional, but dies in the end of it because of his dismay. And that's kind of, I guess, the same thing here. You guys are writing about a machine that by the time it starts to learn what it is to be human, it goes, nope, I'm done. I don't want to.
Getting back to rust, to iron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a curious way to, it's in a way, it's a critique on humanity.
Definitely. And by the way, it's always been our interest to talk about the conscious and the humanity and kind of psychological stuff. And this is how frontal concept came up with the incident of Phineas Gage and everything, what happened after his incident, the memory lost, and blah, blah, blah. So you kind of see the interest not only in technology and science, it's also in psychology and how human brain works. Kind of in Binary Dream, you can say that we combine both words, both interests. And we have a lot of good ideas for later. Yeah, we have good ideas. Yeah.
I'll bet you do. I mean, just looking, like I said, at the back catalog there, like you guys don't go small when it comes to concepts. You think big. So I can only imagine what the discussions were like amongst you while you're putting this together. It must, I picture, I don't know, like, I know a lot of bands will sit and jam and they'll do things like that. I'm picturing you guys sitting around,
talking all the time. You have no idea. We had discussions like forever, like it never ends. And suddenly we just remember, guys, we should write the music. Let's go write the music. Let's just go write the music. Okay. Like,
right.
And this is where you realize, like, we want a good concept. Like, we don't want like only good music. We want to go big with the concept. So the music will follow, and eventually we are good musicians. We can make something that is nice and we are satisfied with. Our audience got used to a previous album, which is Fronten, so we can continue writing the same style, the same path, let's say, in arrangement and in musicality. So without the concept, you can't cook.
Yeah. And that's fascinating that you guys are driven that way, because you don't see a lot of bands anymore, even the progressive ones, necessarily going with the overarching full story, maybe conceptual in terms of themes, but not always a story. You guys really dig into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very fascinating. What would you say is the hardest part about doing that, though? Because I imagine that takes, I don't know. I can't tell if that takes more or less work than creating maybe a series of songs that aren't connected versus creating that full concept for an album. What do you think is the hardest part about doing that?
Okay. The hardest part is not creating the music. The hardest part is not creating the concept. It's actually finding the link and the what you call the right delivery of musicality within the concept. So you create an amazing riff, you create an amazing chorus, you create an amazing instrumental part, okay? And then you have this concept. So how are you gonna put them together? And which part of the story goes for this instrumental? Which part of the story goes for this chorus? And like, for example, we had the song Hybrid, but we never actually thought it's going to be called Hybrid and in that type of concept, on that part of the concept. So this is the challenging part for me.
Yeah.
It's linking, it's making your brain or see the album from the bigger picture and how people are going to listen to it, because you actually made the music so people can follow it with the concept. Right. You're starting from song 1, song 2, song 3, and this is like introduction, body paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a conclusion. It's like writing an article at the end because it's a sequence for the concept. So you can't kind of mess on any of this process. And at the end, you have to meet midway between the musicality and concept.
Yeah. Which obviously then I think translates pretty clearly to the idea that track listing, the track order is key, because that's how the story is told. A lot of times people will talk about, well, they decide to put this order and the tracks this song first is a great lead off, this, that, and the other. But when you're in that story mode, you're kind of bound by how the story flows.
Definitely.
Yeah. Which is interesting because I know basically but midway in the early part in the first half of the album, you've got an extended instrumental, which is unusual, even in these situations, I think. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a strong purpose to why the instrumental, or two of them technically, back-to-back instrumentals are where they are in the album. Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So, the instrumental part itself in the album, it's this time in Binary Dream is very big. It has like a big portion of the album. So the first instrumental is Time Bridge, and the other instrumental would be the Manifestation song. That it's actually a long track instrumental, and the other instrumental that is kind of in the song of Binary Dream.
Yeah,
it's a link between what's happening at the end of the realization of the dream of this robot kind of seeing things. That's why we call it binary dream, because you can literally dream binary. But if you are a machine, you can actually do binary dreaming. So at this instrumental, it's a link between what's happening in the beginning of the song and the end of the song. And also it's a link between what's happening in the first part of the album and the last part of the album. So after that instrumental comes the outro of Binary Dream, and that's what leads to Hybrid, which is actually talking about the two parts of being a machine and being a human. So that logo instrumental was on point, was like, listen to what we can do instrumentally, because this is the only time we're going to show it in this album to you. And let's move on to another chapter. Yeah.
So when we talk about the instrumentation too, and this is one of the somewhat unusual things for a band whose chosen genre is metal primarily, that you being one of the primary leaders in the band are a keyboardist, and keyboards aren't usually front and center per se. Now, of course, when I think about, if we can go back to Dream Theater, I think about how I believe somewhere along the line, Jordan Rudess and John Petrucci, they have established this friendly treaty of balance, I guess I will call it. I have no idea exactly how intentional it is, but it seems like it is, because it's very consistent. Where it's
more melodic too. It's like they treat their instruments like buddies,
right?
Like they own their instruments together.
Yeah, and they have the songs built in these nice moments for give and take back and forth, where one of them each takes turns being in the spotlight.
Yep.
So I'm curious, what is it like for you as a keyboardist then moving into that type of genre? I mean, I know they've maybe established a template. Maybe that makes it easier, or maybe that doesn't. I don't know.
Okay. I had a lot of influence on Rudess till the day. I love what the guy do, and I am pretty influenced by him. Like whatever he does, his explorations, technology, music technology, something that I really admire. And it made me explore my own path kind of in technology. And that's why getting into the keyboard world right now, to me, it's a pretty cliche thing, because right now it's not the time for being okay, I can play. All right. How do you sound? Right now it's how do you sound? Yeah. So that's why I'm more into sound design. That's why I'm more into the side where you can show people that you can do this sound and move them with your sound. Okay. It's not I'm not saying that, hey, keyboard players, don't practice, don't play, just go sound design. I'm trying to say that master this, perfect it the way you want, and then move on to this part, because this part is taking over the world.
Right.
Real. This part is what we call technology, music technology.
Yeah.
It's like all the artists in the world, without any exception, use electronic music or electronic sounds in their music, because they want everything digitalized. It's easy. They don't want to go to the studio and find a drummer that plays 2K and they record the whole album for them, whatever. They just want to make it simple, sounding good for the market. And that's why it's very important. Everybody is going for it. Everybody is following. Everybody. So my influences in keyboards still remains the same for the giant. And I'm in love with Herbie Hancock. He's also one of my main influences in jazz chord progressions. He's a school, like his academy. Like I can open him whenever I want to just to revise or something. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing I've always loved about the whole genre is the fact that it's pulling out from different genres, that it is not necessarily just this one thing. It is all these things, but with heavy guitars.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually. But or heavy keyboards. I mean, because there are times that in the past where I realized that one moment I thought I thought Petrucci was playing. Then all of a sudden I looked, wait a minute. No, that's Rudess. Holy crap. The keyboards sound like a guitar. It's amazing. So
this is an influence I really adapted from Rudess.
Yeah.
And his way of thinking that anything that is heavy should not come from the bass or the guitar.
Yeah.
Could not come from the bass or guitar. Like it's something that you build in the mix, you build in the style of the band. Musicality and the soundscape can be filled with all the instruments. And this is how I love The Dark Eternal Night produced it. I love the song because of the combination of sounds that is going on. From 0 to, I don't know, I forgot how many minutes it is, whatever minutes it is, there is always this bass, guitar, and keyboard riffing.
Yeah.
It's so special. This is so special.
Yeah.
It fills your ear with new sound. This is something new. You don't hear this in Metallica, riffing. You don't hear it in the sound. So kind of listening to this 7-string kind of riff coming alive on keyboards is something nice. Something nice, yeah.
Yeah, really is. He's truly a special artist. So, yeah. So you look back, and again, as I mentioned earlier, you guys have been doing this for 11 years now, I guess. And as you look back now, and compare and contrast to the person you were when you started, and to the band, how do you see yourself having changed over those years?
Musically, definitely changing music. And as a musician, for sure, as a keyboard player, as a sound designer, this is the change that. But for the whole band, I can say that we are more tighter in learning. We are more tighter in communicating. We are more tighter in writing. Because the process in the beginning it was a very kind of hard and took a lot of time to process.
Yeah.
After years, like let's say 2016, when we started writing Frontal, it became very smooth, and then ideas flowing more, and we started using technology for real writing the process, like seriously writing on software, seriously writing on bringing all the sounds together in the writing process, like with no post-production. This is the post-production, like let's do it now, kind of stuff. So that progress came out for all the band in the writing process, and especially when we tried to perform more often in Lebanon and in our previous concert in France, Toulouse, with We Are Out and Seventh Wonder. It was a really nice experience, though. This is an improvement. This is a big improvement for musicians in the band, for the chemistry in the band.
Speaking of live performances, any chance for those of us to really enjoy
I'm eating up your questions a lot, yeah? I'm eating up your questions. I'm sorry. Okay. Here comes the question. The question. Not really. Not really. Let's talk about the situation right now, which is we are not being able to make a lot of concerts because of what's happening as parts of the war and everything. And a lot of festivals are not looking up for that kind of, like looking for that excuse to not signing the deal or something. But we are fighting our way into it and keep applying, trying to get the right contacts, trying to get the right, people to work with. I think we might have something in 2025 that is promising. And for 2024, we still don't know yet. But, like Ready for Prog, we've been contacted in spring of 2022. So I don't see it coming for 2024 where someone contacts us, So let's hope.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that world events are having that kind of impact. It's always a shame that the world does things that we would rather it didn't, and that it can negatively impact our ability to enjoy great music and to go out and make a living and things like that. That's sad.
I don't see it. I don't see. Sorry for interrupting, but I don't see it like I feel the kind of festival organizers or whoever want to get prog bands or already prog bands don't get that kind of number of audience. Let's say you have to make a big festival like getting thrash metal, death metal, and black metal bands. You have to stack it up with metal, so all the bands can come. Just you have a stack of the world, So, but doing a prog metal festival is a very unique thing that is happening and rare thing that's happening.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them for that because we are on another part of the world. Kind of, we're close to Europe, but also like Lebanon is a red flag right now. It's a lot of things are happening.
Yeah.
So, that's okay. That's okay.
I hope it changes soon. I would love to see you guys play, and that's where I'm a little bit jealous of Europe in a certain sense that they're the ones that have all the progressive rock and prog metal festivals. The U.S. doesn't really have quite that many. We've got a few, but they're by comparison small. Yeah, I think prog rock, prog metal is much more of a bit more mainstream and a bit more popular in Europe than it is here. Growing, maybe. I'd like to think.
It's like it's surprising me because I know a lot of US based progressive metal bands, and that's really not fair. Not fair for all of them.
Yeah.
Because most of them actually do tour on their own or do US tours on their own. And that's actually good. It's a plus for them. It's a plus for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We need a nice big festival.
Yeah.
Like Europe has. I'm jealous of Europe, darn it. Anyway. Well, Mood, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. I'm glad we were finally able to get connected and get hooked up here.
Same here.
I'm very glad for you guys. The album is doing as good as it is. It is early on, already on some progressive album of the year lists early on, mine in particular. So it's been it's really been enjoyable, and I'm thankful that you guys were able to get that together.
Amazing. Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for having me.
And, absolutely. Thank you for your time.
And I hope everybody enjoys the album. And it's like start of the long journey right now. And more to come.
Excellent. Very good. Take care, sir. And best wishes for the album. And God willing, we have a tour coming along the line here somewhere. And we get to see you live. All right. Take care, my friend.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So if you've been following me for a while, you do know I love talking with the deep thinkers. And Mood and his bandmates have got big thoughts in spades. They got some serious musical chops to go with it, too. Binary Dream is out now, and I've provided a link in the description if you want to go find it. I also want to take a moment to thank Mood once again for joining me, sir. I wish you and the rest of Turbulence big success with the album. And I really hope we get to see you guys out on tour. You really deserve it, and the world deserves to get to see more of you guys. So, for those of you watching or listening, whichever format you've chosen, I do want to send you all the gratitude. Thank you so much for joining me for this ride. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow me on social media, the links are in the description below. And that's also where you can find the link for The Expanse. That's my all-progressive rock station on Live 365, so check it out when you get a chance. So, that's all I have for you for now. As always, I remind you, never fear to deviate from the norm. Keep it proggy. And this is Super Dave, signing off.